Cast or interface? What's better for your project? First, we're going to start out by creating a master item with an interface. Next, we'll create an item pickup and drop-off logic in the player character. And finally, we'll do a demo explainer of cast versus interface nodes. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, to start out, first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up a third-person project with the starter content enabled. Go to content drawer, and we're going to go into the third-person folder, into the blueprints. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating our item. So we'll right-click here, select the blueprint class, and then select actor. We're going to type BP underscore master item. We're going to do a Control-Shift-S to save that. And what we're going to do here is we're going to open this up and just make sure that we are in our editor preferences, and make sure we set this to the main window from the default, because we're going to open up several tabs here. Now, while we're in this blueprint for the master item, we're going to add a static mesh. Just hit enter. And then we're going to highlight this. Well, we can go ahead and compile and save. We're going to highlight this, and then we're going to go over here to where we can add a mesh. The mesh we're going to add is going to be a cylinder. We're going to use this one right here. Now, we're not going to use this actual cylinder. We're going to duplicate it. So let's go ahead and browse to it with this button here. Select it. Do a Control D. And we're going to call this big stick. Control-Shift-S. And then we're going to go over here to the project and the folder here. We're going to take the big stick and we're going to drag it and put it into the content folder. We're going to move it there permanently. And we're going to click this and go right to the content folder. While we're here, we're going to double click and open this up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to change the color, and we're going to use a wood color for our stick. I'll go with this, we'll go with this first one, this polished wood, walnut. Next, we're going to have to change the shape of this so it looks more like a stick that we can carry. So we're going to scroll down, and under build settings, we're going to open that up, scroll down until you hit the build scale. For this first part here, we're going to put 0.04, and we're going to do 0.04 again. Scroll down a little bit more, and we're going to make sure to apply changes. There we go. Now it looks more like a stick. We're going to hit the save here, and then we can actually get out of this. So we can just go ahead and close this out. Now, while we're here, we're going to need to change this cylinder to the item we just created, which was the big stick. Perfect. Compile, save. Next, we're going to have to add a collision so we can overlap with this particular actor. Hit the add button, and we can just type sphere. And we're going to call this, we're going to do the sphere collision. For this collision, we're going to call it the item sphere. For the static mesh, we're going to name this to item body. Compile and save. For this sphere, we're just going to double the size of it. So what we can do here is highlight that item sphere. We're going to close this lock button so we can change all the aspects of the size. We're going to hit 2 and then enter, and that'll give us a good size for the sphere. Compile, save. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to need to create an interface for this particular item. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the blueprint. We're going to go to interface, and we're going to name this BPI, which stands for blueprint interface, and underscore, and we're going to call this master item. Control-Shift-S to save. Now we want to go ahead and open this up. And for the first function, we're going to call this get master item. And then the only thing we're going to need here is we're going to need an output. And the output's going to be called master item ref. And we're going to reference the actual blueprint. So we're going to reference the blueprint we just made, which is the BP master item. And we want to get an object reference for this. Compile and save. Now, we're going to need one more function. And all we have to do is hit the plus sign here. And we're going to call this pick up item. Compile and save. Now we're going to leave this like this because I'm going to show you the two differences between these two different functions within this interface. So let's go back to our master item tab. We're going to go to the event graph, and while we're here, we can go ahead and remove all of this. Compile and save. Now, we're going to select the class default so we can implement the interface we just created, which is up here. We go right here to where it says, this is under class defaults, right here where it says implement interfaces. And we're going to select add. Now, remember our naming convention, so it's BPI master item. We're going to add that. Compile and save. Notice that there's two different interfaces here. So for the pickup item, we didn't add anything to it, as you could see it in the previous before. I'll show you that real quick. So it's nothing here. So when that happens and you don't have any inputs or outputs, this is what happens. So we're going to double click this, and that's going to give us just a typical, custom event that will allow us to activate our code. Okay, so we're going to do some nodes here to create for this item, for this logic. We're going to start with a delay node. And we're not going to use the default here because unfortunately with the human eye we can see 0.2 of a second, but it's a little bit harder to see 1/10 of a second. So that's going to be, this logic here is going to be used to actually, to delete the item. Okay, so we're going to move from here, and then we're going to do destroy actor. Yes, destroy actor. And we're going to destroy ourselves. Next, we're going to give a print screen after the actor is destroyed. And we're going to have it print a message. And it's going to say, item acquired. And just to make it a little bit fun, we're going to make sure we can see it good. We're going to do it for 5 seconds for the display. And we're going to set the actual color of the text to yellow. Compile and save. Okay, so now that we've set up the logic here, we're going to have to do another part of the interface. We're going to need to go to the get master item by double clicking, and it's just opening up a function right here. For this function here, we're going to have to point to ourself. So we drag over here, type in self, then we will have a reference to ourself. Compile and save. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to the content folder. And now what we're going to need to do is, and actually before we do that, I'm going to move this item into our third person and into our blueprint. And then we're going to leave it right here. So that way we can have access to it right here. So now the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to have to do the logic for the third person character. So double click hey, sorry to interrupt the video, but we're going to start the pickup and drop off logic here, but we're going to use two different nodes to illustrate. We're going to start out with the interface, and then we're going to finish with the cast too, so you know the difference. So again, sorry about the interrupt, back to the video. And okay, so to perform this logic, we're going to go ahead and go down here, and we're going to need something to activate it. So let's start with the E key. We're going to go to our keyboard events, and we're going to go down. It's in alphabetical order, and we're going to select the E key. we're going to hold down the B button and a left click, and that'll give us a branch. Now, while we're here, we're going to need to create a variable, selecting a variable. It's going to be a simple Boolean that just says has item, question mark. And that's just going to it's going to tell us if we have the item or not. Next, we're going to drag off of the false, and we're going to do a for each loop. Now, a for each loop, all it basically does is it goes through an array and finds the correct item or actor you're using. So, but in this instance, we're going to do an overlapping actor. So we're going to do get overlapping actors. And what we want to do is we want to filter this by actor. We're going to cycle through any actor, and that's what the each loop is going to pick. But as a requirement for that, we're going to drag off of here, and we're going to ask, does the object implement the interface? And we're going to use the item, so we're going to use BPI, the master item, because that's what we want to grab. So anything that has this, that's when we're going to have the opportunity to grab that. Now, we're going to also need to do a branch here. So we're going to hold down B, left click, hook up the branch, make our code nice and neat. Go ahead and hook up the execute. And then, now we're going to have to grab two more elements from our interface. So we're going to grab, the first one is that pickup item. And we're going to use that pickup item message, which is right here. And we're going to hook that up to the true. And then we also need to grab that get the master item. So we're going to do get master item. And we're going to select that as well. There we go. Now, the next part is important. What we have to do here is we can compile and save to save our work. We're going to go ahead and select the viewport. We're going to select the mesh of the character. And what we want to do is we want to add a static mesh. So we're going to add, here we go. Add the static mesh. You can just hit enter for that for now. And what we want to do is we can compile and save. We're going to change this to our equipped item. That's what we're going to call this mesh here. And then what we want to do is we're going to go back to our static mesh, and we need to go to the static mesh by browsing to it. So right here in the mesh, hit the browse button, and we can just double click it. Now, while we're up here, we're going to need to go to the skeleton. And then once we have the skeleton highlight here, we're going to type in hand in the search in the skeletal tree here. And we're going to select the right hand. Right here, we're going to add a socket. We can go ahead, we can close that. We're just going to type in socket up here. And then we're going to do the hand socket here. And what we want to do with this hand socket is we want to rename this just to keep it simple. We're going to go RH and then underscore. We're going to call this item socket. So that RH is just for right hand. So yeah, you want to make sure you can name things in a convenient way so you understand what's going on. I'm going to hit save for that. Okay, now what we want to do it with this right hand socket, we're going to right click this and we're going to go to add preview. We're going to use the big stick. And I'm going to scroll back on my mouse just to slow it down a little bit, just so I'm not zipping around the area here. And remember, we got our WER keys, which can switch our widget to where we can move it. And what we want to do is we want to align this to where it looks like it's in our hand, like so. And yeah, we're going to have to switch widgets, make sure we rotate it just a little bit so it's not cutting the pinky. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, you want to line up the best you can. There we go. That looks pretty good. Go back to that, and then we're going to just lift it up. I want it to be more like a stick instead of a baton. And that should be, that looks pretty good. And then we want to hit save. Move it back just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. Save. All right, so we can close out of this, and we can close out of this. Now, with our equipped weapon here, what we want to do is we want to parent it. So right here where it says parent socket, we're going to search for what we just created, which was the right hand. So if you don't remember, you just type in RH, and that'll give you the item socket. And there we go. It's instantly added to there. Now, if you want to see how it looks real quick, you can just do this drop down here and type in the stick. There we go. And we can select that, and we've got our stick. Okay, perfect. Now we can go ahead and highlight this again, and we're gonna actually have to clear this because we don't want this scene right away. So we're gonna hit compile and then save. Now, while we're in the third-person blueprint, we're gonna click our event graph, and we're gonna drag our equipped item here, and we're gonna do a set static mesh. We're gonna hook it up. And what we want to do is we want to set the static mesh to the big stick. And then we're going to do a hold down Alt button and then a left drag. And we're going to set this to, once all this code has played out, that we have the item. Now, compile, save. Now for the next part, we're going to be able to drop the item as well. So we're going to right click. We're going to use F key for dropping the item. Okay, just like up top, we're going to need to do another branch. So hold down the B button, do a left click, connect that up. Oh, here we go, connect it up. We're going to take our has item and Boolean and make sure we use that condition. We're going to grab the equipped item and we're going to set the static mesh. Now in this case, we want to set the static mesh to, we don't want to set anything here because up here we're enabling it, here we're taking it away. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw off of here and we're going to do something called spawn actor from class. And the actor we want to spawn is our master item. Our blueprint master item. There we go. And then for the spawn transform, this is important because this is going to give us location, rotation, and everything. We're going to get the actor transform like so. And then finally, we're going to hold down the Alt button again. We're going to left click and we're going to drag and drop that off. And we're going to set that to false because the other one will be set to true because it means we have it. And this one means we do not have it. We're going to compile and then save. Okay, so that should be pretty good. Now what we want to do is we want to go to our third person map. And then right here where we have our start at, we're going to set our item out into the open. So right here, just select content. We don't want the big stick. We don't want the static mesh. We want the blueprint. So we're going to go back to our third person to the blueprint. We're going to grab the static or the blueprint here, blueprint actor, set it right there. And to test this out, we're going to hit play. Now, when we walk up, if we hit the E button, we've got our stick. And it says item acquired. Now, if we hit the F button, it'll drop the stick off. And you can do it multiple times. Now, I'm going to escape out of this, and then I want to show you something that's important about implementing the the actual blueprint interface right here. So I want to show you something creative you can do. If you right click here, you can type cast to master item. And you can do this with any actor. We're going to hold down the control button. We're going to grab the target and put it here for the object. And then we're going to, even this, we're going to take the two executions. We're going to hook those up. And we've replaced the blueprint interface with a cast to. So let's see if that works. We'll see what happens. Go to third person, hit the play. We're going to walk over. Now that's interesting. So what just happened? We just used a cast to and a blueprint interface interchangeably. Isn't that interesting? So let's explain why this is happening. But before we do that, I'm going to escape out of this. We're going to go to the third person. And I want you to notice, okay, so we got the cast to here. And I'm going to actually put this back. We don't have to, but I'm going to. So hold down the control button and then left click, drag and drop. And then compile and save. And now we've got our blueprint interface back. Now, if you look right here at the top, we've got a cast to player controller right here. Okay. Okay, so basically, I'm going to explain why you would use a cast to, and this is in simple terms, so I'm not going to give a really deep, long, drawn-out conversation about it, but I want it to be understood. So the cast to is fine for right here, for this input map, because if you look here, we can right-click, and we can definitely do, we could do it, well, I can't do it because I didn't make the interface, but I can make a player interface for this controller, for the player controller. But I don't want to do that, because this is fine, because this is only being used within this blueprint, where the only other thing is, so one of the things with the cast to, you don't want to use a cast to in two scenarios. And I mean, there's more scenarios than that, but you only want to use a cast to if it's like in a single blueprint and it's not being used often, because cast to nodes unfortunately use a lot of resources and can bog down your server or whatever computer is running your game. But now, if you use something like this, another instance why you would not use cast to, or you would rather use this blueprint interface, is because you have multiple actors that could possibly be using this, and which would cause, if you did it with a cast to here, the problem is that you would have multiple cast to. So if you have 1,000 people cast into an items, or in this particular item, or this particular class of items, then it would bog the server down and make it a lot worse. The other problem is if you use a cast to for an event ticks tick multiple times. So I mean, it's just constantly every frame. So that's the other reason why you would not want to use a cast to on an event tick. So as a general rule of thumb, don't use it on an event tick if you can avoid it. And also don't use it on a cast to on an item or a character that's going to be used by multiple people at multiple times. But I hope you've learned how to use the cast to node. I hope you understand how to use the interface. I hope you enjoyed this practical tutorial. And if you did, please click like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.